Thank you for joining us today for the Retain Kentucky Modified Duty Offsite Work Programs. I am Kimberly Wickert from the University of Kentucky Human Development Institute and Retain Kentucky. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a mid-career white woman with blonde hair and glasses. Today, in honor of One Day for UK, I am wearing a University of Kentucky buffalo plaid shirt, and I have the virtual One Day for UK background. I would welcome everyone to join if you have questions or comments by putting those in the chat. We will be monitoring that throughout our presentation, and we welcome your participation. We also have a survey that we will be sending out to you following the presentation today, asking you about today's presentation as well as what you would like to see in the future. So please take just a few minutes and complete that when you get that. So our information in the presentation today, as well as any accompanying materials, is intended for informational purposes only and doesn't necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the University of Kentucky Human Development Institute or its individual employees. Although we attempt to provide accessible, accurate, and current information, no guarantees are made to that effect. So our employment seminar series in May is successfully navigating the job accommodation process. Our subject matter experts are going to be Heather Roop and Brandon Williams from the University of Kentucky ADA Compliance Department, and that will be on May 10th. So we will put that registration information in the chat, and we would welcome your participation if you can. If you're unable to join us for that presentation or really any presentation for Retain Kentucky, you can find that on our Retain Kentucky media site in YouTube. So you can just basically put Retain Kentucky Media in there and it'll take you right to all of our presentations. So our objectives today are to hear ways to retain employees through modified duty offsite programs. We're going to discuss alternative stay at work and return to work strategies with our subject matter expert, as well as reviewing retain support and how we can help you in that process. So I am really excited to have my friend and colleague from, many years back. I think we started working together in 2009, Nancy Kelly, who is a registered nurse. She has her Master's of Science in Nursing from the University of Tennessee. We have a few UT fans on our Retain team, one in particular, I think, Jason Jones. And she's also a certified occupational health nurse, specialist, and case manager who provides case management coordination and risk management at Averett Express Transportation. So Nancy, I know you have a lot of background with the state of Tennessee in assisting them with their telehealth services, as well as their workers' comp, and sit on boards to provide them with your expertise. You also have worked with veterans, people who are on short-term disability, people with brain injuries, and have some expertise in OSHA record keeping. Your bio was really large, so I condensed it down to a few things. Anything that I didn't share that you would like to share with us today, we'll get. If you have anything as we go along, let me know. But we're so glad to have you here today. So basically, just to talk about what we're going to talk about today, specific to people with injuries and illnesses, and how those types of injuries and illnesses can make workers exit or leave the workforce. Each year, we see millions of American workers who experience those types of injury and illness that puts them at that risk of leaving the workforce. And some of those are work-related injuries. However, many of those occur off the job, and that includes our retained participants. And when workers leave the workforce because of an illness or injury, it can have a number of negative impacts, not just on that worker, on their family members, on their employers. Nancy will share that perspective for us today. Also, on our workforce in general, and coworkers. Coworkers can be negatively impacted by having to, help support that void when that person is no longer working. So it really does negatively impact a lot of people and areas. And we're going to talk about some ways today that we can effectively help keep workers on the job by supporting those workers in their remain at work goals through those early intervention strategies, by looking at helping them stay at work or return to work. And since 2013, the Office of Disability Employment Policies demonstration project, RETAIN, which RETAIN Kentucky is part of, has been around to help employers and workers and organizations focus on those early intervention strategies. So while I was preparing for today's presentation, I came across this systemic review of well-being at work, and the results were posted in the International Journal on Environmental Research and Public Health, and indicated that a higher level of psychological or subjective well-being was among those individuals who returned to work following a health problem, and also that those who returned to work may have found themselves reassessing their priorities, and they were attaching a greater importance to looking after their health. So not only all of the things that I mentioned just a few minutes ago about how injury or illness impacts people, not just the people who are experiencing that injury or illness, but also their employers, as well as coworkers and family members. We can look at how going back to work following that injury or illness can offset some of those negative impacts. And we're going to talk about that today. So some of those alternative work programs could be on site at the employer. We've had a subject matter expert in our previous employment seminar series talk about transitional work programs and how somebody can transition back to hopefully their original job, but maybe another permanent position within their employment setting. Modified duty also could be somebody doing a portion of their original job in a modified capacity. And we often see people return to work in a gradual capacity as well. So maybe their healthcare provider says, yeah, you can go back to work, but let's not start at a full shift. Let's start at 4 hours and see how you do, and gradually work you all the way up to that 8-hour shift that you were working before your illness or injury. We also have offsite return to work programs. So maybe somebody can who worked at the employer previous to their illness or injury is now working remotely at home, or maybe they were working remotely at home with some modifications to their job. They too could participate in a gradual return to work program. But what we're going to focus on today is that nonprofit offsite modified duty work program. And this is a transitional work placement at nonprofit organizations. It can be virtually or in the community, and Nancy's going to give us information about her program at Averett that's in the community that allows her workers to work offsite within their temporary capacities while they recover. So this is a really great program that Nancy's really had the ability to help a lot of workers over many years to be able to return to work or stay at work following that illness or injury. And Nancy, I know that you and your program focus on people who have been injured on the job. to be able to return to work or stay at work. So tell us a little bit about the history of Averett's program and how you've been instrumental in that process.
Thank you for having me today, Kimberly. It's a pleasure to always work with you, and I believe that you are definitely part of our success story. When I came to Averett in 2009, I had previously worked at a manufacturing facility as an occupational nurse, and we had an active return to work program at the manufacturing facility, and it was all under one roof. So it was very easy to bring people back to work in a modified duty capacity. We could have them work in different departments. We could help them with their modified schedule every day, and you know, we were there, right there with them, boots on the ground. I then had the opportunity to come to Averett Express, and very quickly realized that there was not an active return to work program, and transportation is difficult to do modified duty with, simply because we have service centers, and our associates are all over the Southeast driving trucks, and we're not under one roof. So it was really hard to try to help them return to work after their recovery. And keep in mind, we are a freight company. We have almost 10,000 employees, and we do very heavy job category type work. Our minimum lifting requirement is 80 pounds for our drivers and dock workers. So if you've had a on-the-job injury, for instance, a rotator cuff repair, we have, you know, a 5 and 6 month recovery process with extensive physical therapy, and just trying to get them back to where they can do the minimal requirements of the job, the essential functions. And 80 pounds is quite a bit post rotator cuff repair. So fortunately, I was able to connect with Kimberly Weichert, and she had a wonderful program that helped us to place our injured associates in their communities in nonprofits, and it works so well for us. We've had over 600 referrals since 2009, and I just can't say enough about the program, in that it's offers our associates a way to transition back to work successfully after being out for a while. And we know the statistics are pretty hard when it comes to being off work for more than 6 weeks or 6 months. The return to work average is not high in that respect, but this program helped us to maintain communication, and really helped our associates in their community, and letting them know that their employer is ready to help them get back to work.
Yeah, thank you very much for that information. And I know, like I said, you use it for work-related injuries, and employers also may use it for short-term disability. So once you as the employer are notified from a healthcare provider that somebody can return to work, that has capacities to do some type of work, and you see that it may not be coming back to that original position, driving or as a dock worker, what do you do at that point once you receive those capacities?
Okay, yeah, what we like to do is work with our workers' comp panel physicians to have medical restrictions. And those medical restrictions can be return to work in a sedentary duty requirement, and that is very very challenging, as you well know. But the nonprofits have the ability to place our injured workers, and we focus on ability. What can you do? because that's the start. That's the start. And we let them know on the onboarding uh, pre-hire orientation that we do have this program. So we try to set the stage and let them know that this program is part of our recovery process. So we make a referral based on those medical restrictions, and we are then able to communicate with our injured worker, hey, we have a job opportunity um, at this morning I made one for a thrift store in their small Tennessee hometown.
Mhm.
And so he will begin work there, I believe May 8th. And we're hoping he'll come back to work probably in about 6 weeks after that.
Okay. So I love the idea that you present that as part of your onboarding and orientation for employees. So you basically share your stay at work, return to work philosophy and culture, that you want to, you've recruited those employees that you've looked so hard to, be able to hire, and that you want to keep those valued employees. And then, in the unfortunate event that they may be injured, you're going to do everything you can to bring them back to work, to get them healthy and bring them back to work. So I love that you do that in the onboarding and make them aware of that process. I like the fact too that it's presented because it is a benefit. It's a benefit for them to be able to, come back to work. Like that study revealed, it helps them focus on their health and their wellness and their well-being. And like you said, what they can do versus what they can't do. Sitting at home, thinking about, getting back to work and all the things that they're not able to do, as opposed to coming back to work in this modified duty offsite capacity, being able to contribute to the community, like the local thrift store example that you just shared. So,
Right. Well, and we try to match them up with what they might be interested in. And I was laughing with our associate this morning because he said his wife shops at that thrift store and he was very familiar with it. But it is a big change to go back to work, especially if you've been driving a truck all your life and you're asked to work somewhere different. It's
mhm.
scary. You have some fear there, and so I really like to just say, just work with us on this, try it out, go to the placement appointment, see what you think. And a lot of times it's a lot different from what they might expect.
Mhm. And I know one of the things that you and I have talked about over the years is that, especially for someone, like you see with your associates who may be doing this for 20, 25 or more years and have only known, being a dock worker or driving a truck. And then they have the opportunity to volunteer in a local community nonprofit organization. And they realize that they have a skill set that they didn't know they had. And so not only does that help promote them as they're recovering, they feel really good about themselves learning this new skill set, or, contributing to that skill set to their local community. But I've also seen where they come back to work and that skill set then transfers into their position at work. So yeah, I think you've seen that too, right?
We have, and I shared with you with a story we had. We did have a driver who felt like he could not go back to commercial driving, and he had been placed in a food bank and helping the community and dispersing food, and he liked it so much. He resigned from us and went to work there. And while that is not our goal, it's just a great example, I think, of a vocational rehab type thinking. And fortunately, that doesn't, it was like 1 in 600 that's happened. But again, like you said, I think it opens their mind, and that there are other opportunities out there. And whether you're a commercial driver or whether you're a construction worker or whatever, if you've had an injury and your life has been changed by that injury, there are other opportunities. And You just have to let people understand that there are gifts and talents within them that they need to be open to. And I think this is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the food bank. I think, in my experience, having done that work prior to coming to Retain Kentucky, food banks are definitely a go-to for people who are looking for modified duty offsite work. The thrift store that you mentioned. Sometimes people who have a love for animals will get placed at their local SPCA where, we would avoid, and I know you do too, any kind of high risk activities. So like direct animal care was avoided, but, maybe, cleaning the kitchen or organizing the donations for, the food for the animals, or excuse me, doing the laundry, because there is laundry at the local humane societies that has to occur with, towels and rags and that type of thing. But there's all kinds of things that can be done. And I remember we had a really unique placement with you at an alligator farm one time in one of the, I think, southeastern states, and that became a kind of like a running joke with some of your team, but it was I think it ended up being a really cool experience for the person who was placed there.
It really was. And like I said, him and his wife go back and volunteer there. They have, it's like a wildlife rescue and refuge also. And, but one thing to keep in mind with what we do for this is for workers' comp, injured workers. So we are still paying them their temporary total disability benefits, but we bump it up to temporary total disability benefits are 66 2/3 of your average weekly wage. We bump it up to 80% of your average weekly wage. So not only are we trying to transition them back to work, we're paying them more, and with the goal of getting back to full duty work and full pay. So it's just a stepping stone process, and it's well received. And I think a lot of people, and especially our demographics, mostly men. We do have female truck drivers, but the majority are men, and they're middle-aged men, and sometimes they don't like change, as we spoke about earlier, but we just we try our best to let them know that we're in it for the long haul. This is a short transitional duty for your long-term job.
Right. Yeah. And I think, gosh, if anything, the last few years have taught us that change is hard for all of us, right? We've all, I feel like, been kind of in a perpetual state of change. So yeah, and again, I go back to your onboarding and kind of letting them know ahead of time that these are some options that are available, programs and benefits, and a lot of employers even will share it as part of their employee assistance program for their workers, so that they know that that's something that they can access as well, and for employees to be able to go back to work in that modified duty capacity. That also lets them continue to accrue, PTO or vacation time or whatever type of leave time that employer might offer. So that's really helpful and an incentive, as well as, what you're doing with that additional increase to that 80%.
Well, and it also affects your OSHA safety statistics in that we're bringing them back to a modified duty job versus being a lost time day. So if you're into that, it affects that in a positive way. So
yeah, that's a great point. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to see if we practice this. We're going to show a success story of someone that you worked with, and it's just about a little over 2 minutes. So let me get this going.
My name is Gilbert Jackson. I live here in Cookeville, Tennessee, and I've been retired now for almost 5 years, I believe it is. And I was at Averett for 30-something years. I think like 32, 35 years. I can't even remember, to tell the truth. I got hurt one day at work and had to have shoulder operated on. And Nancy called me up and said something was going to put me in some kind of like a work program. I said, okay. It wasn't what I thought it was. To me, it was worse. She took me over to a senior center. I said, what am I going to do here, you know? And I got talking to one of the assistant directors, and she said, you'll be sitting at this desk, answering the telephone, doing paperwork, doing a little cleanup like that. As time went on, when I had time, I'd play a game of cards with them. And I was glad to see them. It's like I just couldn't wait to get there. And I just sat down and reacted with them, just talk to them, play cards with them, just keep them going. Because I think it was a great program. I said, that keeps these people active and not home on the couch wasting away. And that's what really got me at the senior center, that I can help by being there with them, talking to them, and be friends with them, and makes them want to come because it's someone they can relate to or whatever. So I just started doing that. I can't remember how long I worked there or stayed there, but I got to think. I said, when I retire, I'm coming back over here and I'm joining this place. I said, these people have touched my heart, and I just can't believe how these people have affected me. It made me more humble, like, instead of just being grouchy, you know, whatever at home, not doing anything. And like I said, I was comprehensive about it first going there because I didn't want to do this. But the more I stayed there, I didn't care about their part. I cared more about the people there. And that made me relax and just enjoy it. And then I feel good about doing that for them because that's my purpose, if you ask me, to keep them happy and keep them moving. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's a good experience for me. Like I said, I never thought this would happen. I'd be going there and do this job and get the heck out of there. But that didn't happen.
That's a great story of Gilbert, and I'm going to exit out of here. But Nancy, tell us a little bit more about how that all worked out. I think you have a little bit of an update too.
Yes, and I will tell you, he was grumpy. He was grumpy and said, that just isn't what I'm going to do. I'm not, I could tell he was fearful and mad and didn't want to do any type of modified duty. He just wanted to come back to work and then retire. And I remember asking him, I said, what are you going to do when you retire? And he said, I'm going to mow my grass. I said, okay. And so the best part of this story, though, is that he continues to volunteer at the senior center. And I called him on Monday because he is from Cookeville, and he was on the golf course. I asked him how he was doing. He said, great. I've got to go in a minute. It's my turn to hit the ball. And I said, okay, but one question, are you still volunteering at the senior center? And he said, yes, I am. And I still love it. I said, okay. And
Awesome.
I didn't share this with you, Kimberly, but during the pandemic, the senior center closed. So he actually invited them over to his home. And
wow.
His wife told me that story. And so they invited him over to their home just so they could still play cards. And so it's a great story.
It is. And thank you to Gilbert for letting us share that. I know we've been able to share that in a few different presentations over the last few years. And I got the opportunity when I came to visit Averett headquarters in Cookeville several years back. You took me to that senior center and I got to see a rousing game of chair volleyball. And I think he was helping to maybe referee that game. So that was really great to be able to see. So I know we're a couple minutes over time and we're wrapping up here, but what would you say to employers or our workforce professionals or healthcare providers who are listening about getting ready to provide alternative modified duty offsite as a best practice for return to work?
I think I would say as an employer to make sure you have a plan. We didn't have a plan. we tried other things, they didn't work, but when we found what worked for our culture and our company, we were able to communicate it before the worker gets injured. You know, this is what we do if you have an on-the-job injury, and this is part of our recovery plan. So, and I also want to say, just pick up the phone and call those injured workers that are at home. They're wondering, you know, how am I going to make it through this? I think the employers are in the best position to get them back to work by letting them know, we want you back. We're ready to have you back. What can we do to help you get back to work?
Great idea. And I know you've often highlighted people, you know, with their permission in the newsletter about their participation in your return to work program. And I think that's a great way to get the word out too, and to help other people who may be in that position some other time go, oh yeah, I remember seeing this in the newsletter. Yeah, they talked about it when I started working 10 years ago, but I forgot about it, but I see it in the newsletter every once in a while. And I think that's a great way for you all to keep people thinking about how valued your workers are and how much you want to bring them back to work.
That's right. And retention is such a big deal these days. And so anything we can do to help them when they've had possibly their worst day ever, we're going to be there for them.
That's a great way to put it. So we really appreciate you sharing your expertise today and your experience in this program. And our Retain Kentucky participants, eligibility criteria is listed here. I'll go ahead and send out this PowerPoint. We'll send it out to everybody who is participating today, so that if you have someone that you think we can help you in their alternative stay at work or return to work strategies, these are the ways that you can make a referral. And the link for Gilbert's information, if you want to watch that again, will be on there as well. So thank you so much, Nancy. It was nice being able to spend some time with you again today. And we really appreciate you sharing all the good work that you're doing and that Averett Express is doing.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. It's always a pleasure.
Have a great rest of your day.